What's up, fellow lords of gaming, and welcome back to another episode of Marvel Future Fight. So today I wanted to do a little bit different as we kind of we're getting into that round out for the 8-year anniversary and the May update, with the conclusion this week, probably Tuesday, where we'll be getting Groot and Gamora in T4, and I want to talk about the future of this game and where one of the things, the primary thing I would really like to see the game do. Besides I know people want more crystals and I know people want tier 4 materials. I know that, but I'm going to talk about something different. Essentially, I've played this game now for about 7 years. The game's been going for 8 years. I've played it for 7. And by and large, we have a toon collector in a game. Now, the one thing that has kind of dismayed me over the years is the inaccessibility for this game to keep up with costumes while selling you costumes. Like, it's a weird system, right? So like what I mean by that is that the system essentially puts costumes into your hand, and the costumes come at a premium price because inlaid into those costumes are costs. So like, for instance, let's use Spider-Man, right? Spider-Man has had a number of looks over the years, starting out with his beginning one, but every new iteration of the Spider-Man costume essentially makes the previous costumes that were completed in the set unusable. Now, this affects a lot of things because, and I don't know that it's ever been handled really well, because, for instance, let's say that we have a new player who's coming into the game and they essentially have, they're starting out right now and they don't have any of the previous costumes. Well, along with the costumes having their own unique identities and effects, one of the bad pieces is that when you look at the costumes, right, they all have their own uniform effects and powers to them, but they also have their own uniform options. So as new costumes come in, you basically end up with a new state of meta for the costumes, and some of the uniforms end up phasing out. So for instance, for Spider-Man, a lot of these costumes that he had, they're not bad costumes for his uniform options because they're relevant uniforms. And what I mean by that is that they're uniforms that are relevant to the character, not necessarily relevant to the meta. So like, for instance, Kate Bishop is a very relevant uniform, Juggernaut is a very relevant uniform, War Machine, Ultron, and Odin. These are all uniforms that are relevant to the characters. Like, if you were to pull up these uniforms for each of those characters, they are the newest uniforms that are available for those characters. What this does, though, is that when you do end up with uniforms, per se, that happen to have characters that are not part of the meta, right? Meaning, or not part of the relevancy, you end up with a bad uniforms. Like, for instance, if a new player joined in right now and they wanted this Magneto uniform, this is a perfect example. They wanted the Magneto uniform. They have no reason to want to go back and purchase a Jean Grey X-Men Red uniform, because Jean Grey X-Men Red is irrelevant to the Jean Grey character. There's no reason for you to actually go out and purchase this uniform. I have no desire to tell a player, or any of the YouTube creators that create content for this game, have no reason to tell a player to go back and purchase Jean Grey X-Men Red. Like, if we were to go look down a list, the rest of the uniforms are pretty fine. But if I go over to Jean Grey and I wanted to look at her uniforms, this is her latest uniform. It is the Dark Phoenix Jean Grey uniform. Jean Grey X-Men Red is an old uniform, and you having that uniform doesn't really particularly help you. Now, it could in some regard, depending on whether you want it, like where some uniforms will have like super, they'll change type on the character. So like, instead of her being universal, she a blast type or something like that. But realistically, you're just going to use another blast type character in order to facilitate those type of changes. But so like, who would be the perfect case for that? I think it would be Iron Man. Would be like, no, it's not Iron Man. I can't remember which characters would be a good example for that. Maybe it's Cap. Like, for instance, with Cap, I believe that he had like the Secret Wars uniform, right? So being able to switch from from normal Cap to a female version of Cap and still be able to use them, or normal Cap to a villain Cap, these type of uniform changes might help you facilitate the usage of a character that you really like better. but overall they don't really provide incentive for any new players that are jumping on this at this point to go back and purchase old looks, even if those old looks might be popular. Like for instance, Cap is the perfect example where we have the back to the basics uniform. It's a very original look for Captain America inside there in terms of like his old 1960s kind of debut and stuff like that. So it's not a bad uniform overall. It's given a little bit of a modern treatment to it, but it has that feel, right? But however, I would argue that one of the more popular versions that was there for Cap would have been probably like his not his Age of Ultron. It would have probably been like Endgame, right? Where he actually has the skill inside here to actually wield Thor's hammer and stuff like that appears in some of his skills. Like something like that would have been more popular for the character to use. Or for instance, Spider-Man is a perfect example as well. That's why I wanted to stick to him, is that essentially like you have Iron Spider inside of here. I absolutely love this look for Spider-Man, mostly because I remember when Michael Turner did this inside there and it had the Iron Spider look and everything, and it looked amazing. It's an homage almost, in my opinion, to that time when Turner created it. I think some of the other uniforms that Spider-Man has had inside here, like the Secret Wars uniform, like you can see this is a perfect example, right? So like I have the Secret Wars uniform inside here where he's basically wearing a symbiote suit. We don't really have a time where we see another symbiote suit type Spider-Man, but how great would it be to get an update for the symbiote suit? Now I can purchase this for 500,000 gold, and a lot of the uniforms will end up hitting that mark where they essentially like kind of phase out and they'll go into gold. But I feel like that's a little bit of a loss for the developers. This is not like saying that I want to line developers' pockets with money, but I do feel like their work should be rewarded. And I also feel like the game needs a way to earn revenue in order to keep going forward. So like these uniforms, instead of necessarily probably costing gold, these are things that like specifically like Spider-Man Secret Wars uniform where he's in a symbiote uniform, you know, instead of you paying the full price for the uniform, 1750, 1250 crystals or something like that, you could have a decrease in price for these, which it is still at gold cost, right? But then the developers aren't making further profits in order to preserve the game going along or over the time. So one of the things that I would really like to see for the game is a transmog system, right? A transmog system would incentivize players to basically go back and purchase old uniforms that they really might like, and then they could basically use those uniform looks in lieu of the uniforms that they currently have. Now, for instance, if you still want the back to basics power levels and skill sets, then you should still have the ability to have those by purchase the back to basics uniform. You know, like I would essentially go in here, purchase the back to basics uniform, and then I have the ability for all the preview skills. This is going to be the actual uniform, but what I would transmog on top of this uniform is a way to layer or change the design. Like I've collected the Spider-Man uniforms from previous. Maybe I want to have the integrated suit, or maybe I want to have the Far From Home suit, or maybe I want to wear the Infinity War suit, and I just transmog that so that the look of the uniform that my Spider-Man is using is this. That would incentivize me to want to go back and pay for this uniform, right? That gives me an ability as a new player to basically be like, hey, you know what? I don't have to wait for this to hit 500,000 gold. I just need, I really want to wear the Infinity War uniform because it's a really dope design, but it's irrelevant in the game space. But if I was able to go back and say, hey, I don't own this uniform, and instead I can pay, you know, 675, 700 crystals, 500 crystals or something like that for this uniform, then that would be beneficial to me because then I can transmog this uniform on. I think it also would put more into the rotation of costumes being released. Essentially, you know, the players could be paying for looks of things versus the power level of things. Meaning, like, you know, it's like, I hate to say this, guys, but let me be honest with you so that I cannot sustain a game for free. I can't. There's no way for me to sustain a game for long-term free. It has to be paid. So you have to have some way to incentivize the developers in order to make things, and that's us, the players, directly engaging in a place that could immediately affect are euphoria for the game, and that is looks. And I'm going to bring up a point for this, right? So for instance, right now, let's say like Spider-Man was inside this look. We wanted the power level of back to basics, but there are other looks and designs for the character that could be pushed inside of here. Then that would be it. Now, what I want to see is that increased cost where players then have the ability to go back generates more revenue for the game, which allows the developers to do more. For instance, one of the biggest areas I've been pissed off with for a while is that when we had the Black Panther update, we never received the Black Panther uniform for Shuri. So like if you were to go over here, we never received the Black Panther uniform for Shuri. We never got it. She got her T3 and her power, and she got the school look uniform from the jumpsuit kind of look from thing, but we never got the tier 3 uniform, the actual Shuri Black Panther uniform, right? When we saw Riri Williams inside the game, right? Ironheart, she joined the fray, but she joined the fray with a uniform that wasn't the complete Ironheart iron suit that we got inside the movie at the end, right? We didn't get it, right? M'Baku didn't have any uniform changes, and they for some reason chose not to introduce Okoye into the game as a Midnight Angel, which would have been great. Maybe they do it when her series comes. But this also goes into another point for me, right? And that is like our X-Men character. We rarely see updates for our X-Men characters. I don't know if that has to do with licensing or something like that, but we rarely see updates for our X-Men characters nowadays in terms of uniforms as well. Now, and when we look at the game overall, we haven't seen any of the uniforms that I would have really liked to see for the game. So that brings up like the HellFire Gala. The HellFire Gala has been a yearly event that has basically come inside Marvel Studios, where essentially these new variant designs of costumes and stuff like that get featured by different artists. I want to go through some of the ones that have been introduced already for the Marvel uniform for the HellFire Gala that's going to happen this year. Remember, that's going to be going in like May, June, July in terms of comic book releases, right? In August, I think, as well. So like for instance, Captain Marvel, this is a new uniform look for her that I think would be really well received if translated into the game, because it's a very nice design look. Might not necessarily, you know, be everybody's cup of tea, but it's a really nice one. I mean, think about this one right here. This is a very good look for Kingpin. He reminds me a lot of Destiny. What are the Callus Gray, or I can't remember what the hell the names of the Season of Opulent character is. He was just inside of which I can't remember. These are cool looks. I mean, think about, you know, this being a new look for Wanda that we would receive in the game, and how a look like this would be received. I mean, it's just absolutely beautiful. I think it's a really great look. Iceman receiving a whole new look, especially after the really terrible uniform that he previously received inside the game as well. These looks are absolutely fantastic. They're just fantastic. These are amazing looks. Thor getting a new look inside the game where we get the Bifrost, and it's a very different look for the character, which would just be absolutely amazing. This look was something that I just found absolutely amazing. Like Eddie Brock in the symbiote suit basically established this new character inside of here, and it just looks amazing. Venom inside this new suit. Granted, it does, you know, call out a little what was Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, but I think it's a very cool look for the character, and it's amazing, right? I think this uniform, if they introduced it into the game, would sell really, really well. This is Sync, I think is this character's name. I don't really know that much about Sync, but so they would have to introduce a whole new character. But again, going back, the look is just what's there, right? Bishop, we haven't had a really good Bishop look, and I think people would love to see Bishop looks inside the game with some power advancements maybe, but you know, just to give the character a look, that is a really cool look inside the game. Exodus, I think that we have basically asked for this dude since immemorial, and we still haven't gotten him. He was on the list of players 2 years ago. We still haven't got him, but this would be a really cool look for the character, right? Fire and Ice, I think, is the character's names. I can't remember all these characters' names, if I'm being honest with you. They're not in the game though, right? We get a couple of the characters inside the game here. These characters aren't in the game at the moment, and if I'm not right, let me know. But like, this is a really cool look from Miles Morales inside here. Like, I mean, this look, if they gave this look to Miles Morales inside the game, there's no doubt in my mind that this look would sell immediately. Moon Knight, maybe not so much, it's very plain or whatever, but the Moon Knight uniform that we had is just a really good uniform, but it's still a good looking uniform. We get a new look for what's her name? Why am I losing it? Psylocke over here, and it is a beautiful look comparatively to the Braddock uniform that she's currently wearing, which I don't know what the hell they did with that look. Black Panther even has a new look inside of the HellFire Gala, and I think this, barring that he hasn't received a uniform in forever, would be a great look for the character overall. Ghost Rider getting a new look inside there. Like, I think the Ghost Rider look that we have in game kind of looks really amazing, but Nova, oh my god, like this would be an absolutely amazing look. We haven't received, and here goes the funny thing, like Nova is specifically one of those characters where uniform updates that, you know, don't come from the comics, because we haven't seen many variations on the Nova look overall. And Nova was sold to us as a premium, like, well, he's a premium tier 2 character, like, you know, like I say premium meaning like you still have to purchase crystals or something like that to get to him. So he's a premium character in that regard, and we haven't seen anything move with him or Gladiator, right? Forever and a day. Did I mess up? Oh no, it's X23. So like, even X23 gets a new uniform inside here. I think we did get a uniform update for her recently. Why do I not know this character, but I know this character? Yeah, I can't remember who the character is there, to be honest with you. But what I'm getting, Phantom X, like, when was the last time my man Phantom X actually had a uniform inside this game? And an interestingly piece to this is, like, this doesn't really change the Phantom X so much, but it just adds a little twist on his uniform. But it gives you a way basically to buy into the character and basically upgrade him and update him without having to do so much to the uniform in terms of like what you're changing. But you get at the Ice Queen. I mean, come on, man. Like, I think this would be a far better look than the one that we currently have for Emma. So like, I would love to see something like that. Professor X has gotten a uniform recently, but a look like this that puts a complete twist and change on the character, this look alone right here, I think would sell. People would pay the full price of admission for a look like this on Professor X. And then you finish out over here. But these were looks that have been introduced over the current HellFire Gala look, and they plan on having more releases and stuff like that over the coming months, because I do believe that the HellFire Gala will run through May, June, July, and probably into August over the comic book series. But these are variations on the uniforms that are being done by the artists, and I think this is the place where the game could truly make money. Dig into the place that the game is. We are playing a Toon Collector in Marvel Future Fight, and being able to swap between looks and stuff like that adds at least some level of newness to the characters, even if you're not going on full wholesale designs changes for these characters, where maybe you're listening to the community feedback, and using these uniforms gives you a way to like shore up a character's like deficiencies, because you go, hey, you know, Captain Marvel, where's she weak at? Where's Thor weak at? Let's use these uniforms to like shore up their ways. So instead of giving full-on kit redos, we can say like a Thor, right? I'm going to use this Thor look to basically shore up some of the deficiencies that the players feel are there, and maybe I update 2 or 3 skills. But because the look is so unique, that, you know, because it's not a movie tie-in kind of uniform, that we can use these. Now, I understand that, you know, this comes with a premium because there are licenses to utilizing these characters, utilizing these looks, but that's the reason why I'm suggesting the very nature of we, the players, have to do something to give to the developers in order to feed the game if we want it to continue and keep on going. And I believe most of us recognize the game for what it is, as a uniform collector, and this would be, or a Barbie game, this would be a way for players to be incentivized to basically use crystals, to use money to get different looks with little, you know, shore ups for the characters, and give the developer some incentive to create and room to create for new uniforms and stuff like that. It's just a thought. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm really intrigued by some of the uniforms that came out of the HellFire Gala, specifically the Professor X, the Nova, the Black Panther, the Miles. I thought those looks, the Thor, the Eddie Brock for sure. I think those looks were just like absolutely phenomenal looks that I thought would give, you know, some relevance of modern to the characters, and, you know, give the players incentives to basically say, hey, I want to spend some crystals or some money on these. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Until next time, peace.